Hi, it's Nick Drum again at Isringhausen Imports, and we are again discussing the technical aspects of the BMW's 2016 M4 GTS and our M4 that we put together as a again as a car of the same mindset, the same set of goals, but we've developed it in using a little bit different methodology. So if you'll accompany me, we can compare some of the aspects of the cars, how they are similar and how they are different. With the GTS, BMW has engineered a very simple mechanical method of loosening fasteners and sliding our splitter forward, which will have the added effect of beginning to split the air, as its name describes, sending some upwards, some downwards, but it'll start at an earlier point farther forward of the car. If you look at our version here, you'll notice that we have no movable parts, but we have a very aggressive, lengthy front splitter that comes out very far, the equivalent of the GTS overall. But where you start to begin to see differences is in the air management and air flow that's devised and built into the Flossmann parts, again with the primary goal of air direction, air control, so that it makes a very nice smooth transition. The air is directed, you have a nice laminar flow, not a lot of eddies, so you have no drag, and because of the fact that it does raise up, you will get very early a low pressure area here, which helps to increase downforce, which is also aided by the upward angles of some of our surfaces here. With BMW, they have a very nicely finished, very smooth pan here to keep the airflow moving very nicely, but they have somewhat neglected the airflow itself. Now again, we have some exclusive parts here that will cause the air to be fairly well directed through the wheelhouse of the car and outward through the fenders, but if you compare the two directly, you'll see that there's a pretty different appearance, and I believe quite a bit more effective design on the Flossmann components. Many of the suspension pieces on the GTS are somewhat different from the standard M4. They are, you'll notice the finish of our knuckles here is different because that is a different part number. Both cars have carbon ceramic brakes, but when you come over here to the blue car, you'll see that the components that can be seen, things like the sway bar links, the coilover suspension, the JRZ shock absorbers, things like that, those are all have been replaced to again help to improve the handling, allow a high level of adjustability on the car for both ride height, things like anti-roll bar, preload, things like that. Again, returning to the GTS, they have a little more complete finished underside of the car, which is good for airflow, for aerodynamics, for things of that nature. And then you can see the exhaust system here featured. It does have catalytic converters that are mounted here right off the turbos. And then you have two very nice smooth flowing pipes, no flat spots, center resonators, and then you have a crossover here, and then it comes back to the rear muffler, which very sophisticated component. It's all titanium. It can be both, either the exhaust can be directed through the muffler or it can be directed essentially around the muffler, depending on the mode that you are in. But one thing that is pretty clear and pretty obvious right away is just the lack of streamlining, the lack of aerodynamic efficiency back here. You know, we do have what would give the appearance of a diffuser, but it's strictly a cosmetic thing that these little guys here are really only going to add appearance. They're not going to help in any way, you know, straighten the airflow, create any downforce, things of that nature. So again, coming back to the blue car, that was one of our goals right away, was to increase our aerodynamic efficiency. We can talk about the exhaust system briefly. Since this is essentially a track car, you're going to find that it is no longer equipped with catalytic converters. You're going to find nothing in the way of resonators in the system. We do have the single resonator here, which works essentially as the crossover does on the GTS system. And then this is where things become more interesting, because we engineered a system that was able to then be directed, instead of at the outside edges, down the center, which allowed us sufficient room to produce what we believe to be a very effective rear diffuser, where as soon as the airflow is behind the rear axle, it's being straightened, it's being directed upwards, which again is going to create low pressure and help with the addition of the rear wing to create downforce, and therefore the ability to stay in the turn, you know, not lose traction. And you can see our adjustable springs, again our JRZ double adjustable shock absorbers, a number of other fabricated components that aren't as readily visible that are, you know, in the suspension system here. And then the primary cosmetic difference or change that you notice from the rear of the car is with the center exit pipes here and grills here, so that there's no reduction or no restriction of any airflow that goes through, that finds its way through the splitter, versus the more traditional quad outlet, very essentially standard issue BMW when it comes to the appearance and the execution, which is not a bad thing, just really the method that they've gone to put everything together here. Tire-wise, the sizes are very similar. The GTS does have the advantage of the carbon fiber wheels, which are extremely light. I don't recall the figures now, but they are probably the lightest wheel that you could fit to this car. On the blue car, we have a number of options available. We currently have HRE flow form, I think they're 101s, which are also a very light wheel, but it is a wheel that's, in terms of weight and superiority, the GTS would certainly have the benefit there, but wheels are a very easy thing to replace and to work with. So I'm going to lower both cars down to a degree so we can get a little more of an eye-level shot of the underside of both cars and get a better idea of what they look like, both aerodynamically and aesthetically. So just one moment.